When you look for a bank, choose a partner with local expertise and local decision-making. Veritex Community Bank offers solutions and a true business ally. We look forward to building your future. We're Veritex Community Bank, true to your business, true to Texas.
What is up, Magic Family? It's KG Smooth. Welcome to Chevy's Keys to Excellence, providing virtual panels and webinars to Black business owners. Today's conversation is financial literacy, presented by Veritex Community Bank. And this year for Black History Month, we have partnered with Veritex Community Bank to educate and enlighten Black-owned businesses by putting them in contact with the resources and professionals to help expand their business. Now, I got some statistics for you. Did you know that according to a sublet of data in the 2020 State of Small Business reports from Guided Financial and Lending Club, the study reports that 22% of Black-owned businesses, Black-owned small businesses owners are millennials. Yeah. And another stat is that African-American entrepreneurs have had to close their doors due to the pandemic more than twice the rate of their white counterparts, and Black-owned businesses declined by 41% between February and April of 2020, compared with a 17% decline among white-owned businesses. This is out of control. I mean, we see the complexities of it, the verities of it, and it is not right. And so we've got some great people that are here for today's Chevy's Keys to Excellence. And I want to go ahead and say thank you to all of you for logging on, and thank you to Veritex Bank, who is providing these incredible keys to excellence. Today, we have Ms. Marsha Lynn Hudson, who is going to here to talk about how to turn lookers into bookers, the four-step buyer's journey. So we are going to talk to Ms. Hudson. She is a business specialist at the University of Houston, Gulf, Texas, at the University of Houston, Texas Gulf Coast Small Business Development Center Network. Oh, well, hold on here. So, oh no, wait, I was looking, listen, my apologies. I was looking at the wrong thing. The first person that I am going to bring up is Courtney.
Hi, KG. How are you?
Hi, Courtney. Courtney is the VP of Community Development with Veritex Bank. Forgive me in my brain fart, me looking so many scripts. I was reading the wrong thing. My sincerest apologies, darling.
It's okay. It's okay. Thank you for having us. We appreciate it.
Man, and now I would also like to introduce Castel from Veritex Bank, who is the Executive VP of Commercial Banking. Good to see you, man.
Hey, G, how you doing? Good to see you again.
Man, I am doing very well. Thank you. Thank you. But before we start, can you all just tell us a little bit about yourselves? And we'll start with Courtney first.
Yes. So as KG said, I'm Courtney Taylor. I'm the VP of Community Development for Veritex Community Bank. And so I oversee our community development and community outreach activities here at Veritex in the Houston area. And so that includes, financial literacy workshops and us serving on different boards in the community and really just doing different activities, maybe like Habitat for Humanity and, just out teaching classes, and also, of course, investing in our communities. And so we do a lot of donations and sponsorships to local nonprofit organizations just to make sure that we are, community bank, community focused. So, and I've been with the bank for a few years now. So just a pleasure to be working with such great people.
Indeed.
And then myself, I've been with Veritex for 10 years. I've been involved in the banking business on the corporate side for 37 years. I probably worked with 1,000 companies, from small business to large corporate companies in that time frame, and lots of stories to tell. And it's close and dear to my heart to work with our folks in our communities.
Indeed.
And then I've been in Texas since I'm originally from Michigan, from Detroit. Been in Texas since 1981 in Houston, in the banking community since '96.
Indeed.
Glad to be
Thank
here.
you all for being here. You know, Veritex Community Bank, and I love your slogan, your tagline: "Trust in Texas banking."
No question about it.
Indeed. Castel, almost long, you know, we've been talking about businesses and specifically Black businesses. Why is the relationship between bank and business so important?
Well, it's so important because businesses, they always constantly have a need for direction and a resource that they can depend on, rely on, and trust on. And I'll just give you an example. During the stimulus or the PPP issues and COVID over the past year, a number of our Black businesses I've talked with, one in particular I'm thinking about who's in the distribution business, and they were not even going to consider looking at a PPP loan. And I knew they might not because I've known them for many years and helped them get started in business. And I explained why it was important to them and that their business was off 20%. And because of the conversation we had, how it would help sustain them long term, they applied for a business loan. And then also with some of the other smaller businesses, some of them, and I know Courtney will address that in a second, some did not. They were with the large institutions and had some challenges with that. So the key is just, and we'll talk about it in greater detail, having a relationship with a bank that can direct you during the good times, the bad times, and also help you grow. And the bankers need to be transparent with you and help focus on what your needs are.
Indeed. And Courtney, to that point, can you let those at home know the difference between a community bank and one of these national brands that we see all over the place?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So first of all, Veritex is a Texas-based bank. We are serving our Texans. And so really with the community bank, we're more focused, more personalized type of attention. You come in as a client, personable, type of information. You can call us, you can sit down with us, versus actually being treated maybe like a number or something of that sort, right? And so we really also focus on just community growth. We want to focus on businesses where we, local business, but also, this is the place where we love, we eat, we sleep, we play, and so we have to make sure that we're focused on growing our communities. And so we also just make sure that we are extremely important. It's extremely important for us to be involved in the community. So I said earlier how we're giving out to different nonprofit organizations, and so how we're focused on really volunteering and doing those sorts of types of things. It's extremely important. But we're focused on personalized, detailed attention to our customers. And like Castel said, being transparent. Like he said earlier, there were some, business owners that could not necessarily get through to bankers or couldn't apply for some of the PPP loans at some of the larger institutions. And some of those were brought our way, and we were able to help them right away. So, it's relationships based is so important when it comes to community banks. And we really pride ourselves on that as well.
And Casey, let me add one more small thing to that. Our bank during the first round of the stimulus loans or PPP loans, we processed and approved 100% of every loan that our customers applied for. Only at a smaller community bank do you have that ability to do that, because we have a smaller team that's focusing on our customers, and they know us. They have our phone numbers, our cell numbers, where we're able to respond to them. We were getting phone calls at 11 o'clock at night. We were getting texts at 4 o'clock in the morning. And it's tougher for the bigger institutions that have lots of layers to be that type of responsive. And that's one of the keys with a smaller community bank as opposed to a large national brand.
Indeed. You guys, I like the language that you're speaking over there at Veritex Community Bank. Now I'm thinking of, let me switch my money on over, with these great vibes.
Yeah.
Castel, when it comes to presenting yourself as a business owner to a bank, what are some of the things that people at home should keep in mind when they do that?
Okay. One of the first things that I always encourage a business owner that's looking at approaching a bank to develop a relationship is, I think it's important that you have a warm introduction. You know, you need to be very intentional in selecting your banker. You really don't want to walk into a bank unannounced. You want to get the full attention of that banker. So what I've always encouraged companies to do is talk to different friends and business owners that you know, find out who has a good relationship with their banker, ask them to introduce you to a banker, so that a banker that can make some decisions for you and get to know you and help you grow. You know, what I've seen, another example would be what I've seen with some of the other cultures. I may get individual that may say, be interested in buying commercial real estate. They will make 5 phone calls to banks and ask what's their criteria, what are their requirements. And they have written down what the requirements are of each bank. And once they have their package put together and they've identified what the structure and what the banks as a whole need, they will then call that banker back. They've already have pre-qualified them, have a good feel for them, and then they're able to have a warm introduction because they had a phone introduction early on, and they now have a better understanding of what's required of the bank. So there's different ways to do it, but the first thing would be having a warm introduction to the bank. A second thing would be for a business owner is that you have to come with a plan. In most cases, we'll ask you to have a business plan. I'm not necessarily advocating that you spend $2,500, $5,000 for a business plan, because there's lots of business plan formats on the internet. But you have to think through your plan, put it down in writing, talk to other folks that may be in the industry so you can crystallize that plan, and then come visit with the banker. That way you're intentional and it's time well spent between you and the banker can advise you on areas that you need to do more research and homework on, okay, so that you have a better understanding whether this business makes sense or it doesn't. Because the biggest thing we can do by having a plan is that even if you spend $2,500 for a business plan, it's better to spend $2,500 and realize that this is the wrong business venture than spending $300,000 and you're having a $300,000 loan that has to be repaid to the bank or to the SBA or whatever the funding source is at that point in time. So warm introductions are important. Having a plan so it's effective use of everyone's time. And another thing that's important that we struggle with in our community has to do with credit. It doesn't matter how good your plan is, but if you don't have a satisfactory credit score, which is really 700, worst case 680 or so, you have to have decent credit in order for the bank to give you an audience to look at your plan. So if you have good credit or decent credit, then the bank will go to step 2 of looking at your plan to talk about what your need may be. Same thing applies for background check. We all require background checks these days. 10, 15 years ago, we didn't. But that's critical. If you have some issues on your background check, you got to get it cleaned up before you come to visit with the bank.
Well, what's the significance in that now? If they didn't do it before and they do it now, like what's the significance in that? What happened along the way to make banks want to run background checks? Well,
you'll be surprised. I've had situations with companies, individuals that have been in business 40 years, and we found that they had a felony from 20 years ago. And we tend not to lend folks money that have felonies for different reasons. Okay. We're finding out that folks have had DWIs and reckless driving. We'll find out that individual may have had a bankruptcy. I had a situation where someone had a bankruptcy twice. And if they're not going to pay their bills on their home or on their business loans, why would the bank lend them money? So we have to run the background check. We run the background checks and the credit reports very early on. So as a courtesy to that individual, so we don't waste their time after they've invested a lot of time and we have and help them evaluate the business. So those are very important, very critical that you work through those issues early on, so that you're not disappointed and you feel that the bank didn't give you a second chance or third chance, because the bankruptcies are a real important issue for us on that. And sometimes there's reasons why you went through that, but we got to understand the reasons, and you have to think it through and have conversations on the front end so we can figure out if it's something we can continue to go through.
Understood. For those just tapping in, we want to welcome you to Chevy's Keys to Excellence, Black History Month Financial Literacy, which is being brought to you today by Veritex Community Bank. We have Courtney Taylor, the VP of Community Development at Veritex Community Bank, and Castel Hibbert, the Executive VP of Commercial Banking at Veritex Community Bank. How long has Veritex Community Bank been around?
Veritex has been around about 10 years. Veritex started in Dallas. Our chairman, Malcolm Howland, started the company, and it's grown through a number of mergers over the past several years. And we have roughly about 40 offices, 20 in Houston, 20 in Dallas. And we just have a phenomenal team. Most of our bankers are 20-year plus veterans that have a lot of experience working with small businesses and large and middle market businesses. And then just our support team from a loan ops standpoint, 30-year veterans, just a real diverse team in both locations, up in Dallas and also in Houston.
Indeed.
I think that's one of the things I love about Veritex is the diversity that we bring to the table for, like you said, the Dallas and the Houston teams. So much knowledge, so much information out there, so much experience. And so, we just have a great team of people that are working for our customers.
Indeed. Some more questions that I have, like, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you see in our community when it comes to business loans? And why is it that, and if I could add, if you will indulge me, and why is it that our community can only get small business loans and not business loans from these other banks?
Okay. I first say some of the biggest mistakes we make is we don't take our credit seriously. That's by far the most important thing. We have to take having quality credit seriously. We have to invest in our businesses. A lot of our small businesses are undercapitalized. What I've seen in a lot of other cultures that will start a business, let's just say a number of cultures that may own gas station convenience stores, for example, they will pool their money as a culture, as a family, so that when they come to the bank for a business loan, they have more than enough capital to get the loan, and allows the bank to provide working capital. They'll do that. And then in lots of cases, they'll have family members that'll work in the business also. And a part of their culture is passing it forward. So if you will work in the family business in year 3, 4, or 5, you will have a piece of the action, and you'll have your own store or business to run. And they continue to expand the business. And this goes back to, as well, generational wealth. They're passing it forward. They're working as a team. One of the most critical things is, for example, when buying a building, real estate, you have to have about 20% equity at a minimum in order to buy the real estate. A lot of us don't understand that. We have to have education, financial education, to understand what's required. A minimum of 20% if the bank finances it conventionally. If you're doing an SBA loan, whether it's a 504 or 7A, 10 or 15%, there's certain metrics and things that's required to do that. So that's one issue. We're undercapitalized. We don't have adequate working capital to support the business. One thing I tell a lot of our business owners is don't fall in love in the business. A lot of the other cultures here, they're in the business to make money and provide generational wealth for their families. So, you want a business that, when you open the doors, people are going to flock to your business to support it. And one example would be is some folks may say, I always want to open a restaurant. Okay, that's great. But what do you know about the restaurant business? Do you have proprietary recipes that'll get folks coming back here every other week to eat? Or another example would be some folks may indicate they want to open an African-American card shop. Well, the question is, how many greeting cards do I have to sell to make a profit? But it's not about the greeting cards. If you look at a CVS or Walgreens, it's about all the, or Hallmark, it's all the ancillary trinkets and items in the store, which makes you money. If you go on a Walgreens or a CVS, the pharmacy's in the back of the store. You go to Walgreens for the pharmacy, but you pass 30 aisles just to get to the pharmacy. And how many Reese cups do you pick up, or gum or sodas do you buy before you get to the front counter? So you have to understand what the elements of the business are that will make it grow. So find a business that you can grow and make money on, and provide long-term longevity, sustaining growth and income for you and your family long-term. And those are just a few of the small ones, but there's lots of examples of that. Picking the right opportunity. Another example I've given some folks that have thought about businesses is, let's just say, a landscaping business. You know, if you have a $5,000 investment, you can buy a trailer, you can buy a large riding lawnmower, you can hire a couple of guys for $10, $12 an hour. And if you do a great job, you're not just cutting grass, you're putting mulch out, you're trimming trees, you're planting flowers, you know. And by the end of year one, if say you have 20 customers, you may make $75,000 and 2 employees. By year 3, you may have 3 teams. You're making $150,000. You can buy another trailer, another lawnmower. Find a business that meets your skill set, where you can provide a good lifestyle for your family. So we just need to think strategic as to the businesses that we start and we go into.
Okay. I want to go back. I see that we've got a question from the audience in dealing with the background checks. This is from Red Stew. Says, felony, does that depend on the charge? For instance, I understand something like embezzlement, all are felonies. Are they looked upon the same?
Yes, it depends on the charge. I had a situation with someone where they got into a fist fight because someone said something about their mother. And we had to investigate that through the customer. We had the records from the courthouse, and this individual had to provide restitution to that individual. Okay, we dismissed that. We passed on that. We were okay with that once we understood what transpired. So it may be a felony, but it depends on what it is. But embezzlement, that's a no starter. You know, so we have to look and see what the items are on the background check to determine whether it's something the bank feels comfortable with. But it's not just the background check. Everything else, all these other steps we talked about, are critical and important for us to determine whether this particular business and that individual we want to do business with.
Okay.
There's lots of parts to it.
So let's take a minute to talk about our community and our relationship with wealth management. You see examples of, different groups coming together. It seems as though our community just can't seem to get there all the way. Can we talk about the unique relationship Black folks have to finances, and what needs to happen in order for us to come together? Because in all honesty, like, I've been preaching this for 20 years. When I got started in radio in Cincinnati, and there was something that went down with the clubs and liquor, and I was looking at how, the Asians who owned all of these hair supply stores, how they bought everything in bulk. They bought all the supplies in bulk, and then they, distributed out. And then when there were some issues with, the liquor with these clubs, I was like, well, why don't you all get together, buy the liquor in bulk, and, divvy it up like how the Asians do in the hair industry? great idea. It sounds great on paper. And then when they tried, it just could not come together. And then they were back to, just doing it by themselves. So, but what is this relationship with Black folks in finances, and what needs to happen to go back to it?
Well, one of the things is, KG, is that we have to feel comfortable and trust each other in business. And that's one thing that's critical. I think it's very critical that we select our strategic partners, and I mean partners in business, not bankers and CPAs and accountants. If I'm starting a business, I want to have partners that I know, I trust, that I feel comfortable in my home, that will watch my back at all times. I think that's one of the most critical things. And we tend to, I guess, I've had a number of bad experiences about folks carrying their weight and looking out for their own interests as opposed to the group. When you talk about buying in bulk, a lot of communities, like the Asian community, they've done their homework. They'll buy product out of the country, or they'll find a supplier who's in the business. They'll have enough capital to pay for it where they can get substantial discounts. So when they sell it, they're making a good profit on the money. And everyone has a role in that business. Some folks will be operating the business on a day-to-day basis. Some folks' responsibility is to do the manufacturing, do the supplying, managing the warehouse. Everyone is held accountable for every aspect of it. And that's one thing I think we need to do a better job of. Probably a few months ago, I talked to a group of insurance agents around the country, about 200 of them. They're African American. And we talked about providing investment income, back to providing generational wealth. And we talked about, how to get in the business and what type of real estate investments to focus on, and the pros and cons of whether you're buying rental houses or whether you're buying retail centers or single tenant buildings, things of that nature. And I talked to some of my folks internally, our experts, as to which ones would be most favorable in the banking community. So, we have to find experts in the field that will talk to us as a group to help us narrow our focus on what's the best opportunity for us to develop wealth or investment income. I mean, you and I talked the other day about, as we would call it, is it a side hustle or is it your primary business? Mm-hmm. Depends on whether it's going to be your primary business or your side hustle as to, how you focus your time and resources. So lots of questions you have, I can give you specific answers on them, but you're correct. We have to have the right team, partners that we trust and know, where everyone will do their part to grow the business. And we have to focus 100% of our energy on that investment so that it's successful. And we have to be very nimble and flexible as things change. During PPP, all of our customers, both big and small, they were flexible. They watched costs. They made decisions on a dime because the market was so volatile as to getting the PPP loans approved. So they were just making decisions and doing pro formas or what ifs. Do I have to lay off 5 employees, 10 employees, 20 employees? Can I furlough them? Can I bring them back on if I get my stimulus, or not my stimulus, my PPP loan? We have to do that. And a lot of our issues are that we don't have financial advisors to help us make decisions. And that goes back to having a CPA, an attorney, and other business folks, professionals to talk to. One of my coworkers, we talked earlier, and one thing we should consider, what a lot of cultures do is there's networking groups, think tanks. That's probably the best way to say it. Having a think tank that you can talk about things on an ongoing basis. I have a few friends also, when we talk about investments, that we talk about on an ongoing basis, because I'm 62 years old. I'd like to retire at 65, 66, or 67. So I'm continuing to plan for when I decide to walk away. and it's never too early to do that.
Indeed.
Right.
Let's go back to.
I want to piggyback on that.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Courtney.
Can I piggyback? So as far as our relationship with money in our community, like Castel was saying earlier, the collaboration piece, I think we just don't collaborate as much as we should. And like he was saying, as far as having those partners and things of that nature that we can trust, but also the educational piece. I know me kind of growing up and other folks, I didn't really know about finances. I really didn't really learn until probably in my 20s, and so really there's so much now, education and podcasts and books and just Google, you can find so much information out there. And so we really have to take the time to want to educate ourselves, and then going to, things like what we're doing today and having these conversations and workshops or whatever the case may be, because the info is out there, but we have to we want to go get it. We have to have that saying, you know what, I'm ready to go do something. How do I find this information? Where do I go? Where do I look? And so it's there, but we have to want to go find it too.
That's a great point, Courtney, because whenever I interview or talk to financial people, financial advisors, bankers, executives like yourself, I always ask, where does the responsibility lie when it comes to financial literacy and financial education? Should it start in the home, or should the school system be responsible for it? I know, in our community growing up, I'm a man of a certain age, grew up during a certain time where a child stays in the child's place, where, the bills are being paid at the kitchen table, this grown folks business go on. In school, I remember them teaching us about banking, what a checking account was, how to balance that checking account, but they never taught us about credit. And so when I'm a fresh young 18-year-old roaming the yards of the University of Cincinnati, and there's this table set up and there's T-shirts and stuffed teddy bears and all, like, hey, you want a free prize? Just sign up, for this thing. 5 days later, I have a credit card that has a $500 limit on it. Like, ooh, right. I need 2 more books for these classes. Let me use this to go and do that. Now, college kid broke, like, oh, okay, minimum payment's $25. Yeah, I can do that every month. But then you got caught up, and you got caught up. The minimum payment, you're paying those aren't enough, and it just gets higher and higher, and you're young and you don't know the game, so you just like forget it, and you go on about life and all of that. So to you two, like, where do you all feel that the responsibility lies when it comes to financial education and literacy? Is it something that should start in the home, or should the school systems be responsible? And why don't they teach the whole full gamut? Well, that's a rhetorical question. I know why they don't teach us the full gamut, but where do you all think the responsibility should lie solely? It's
a community effort, KG. Unfortunately, a lot of our folks come from single family households, and it's hand to mouth. They're working hard just to keep filling the table for the kids. So that's a challenge in a lot of households. So, but it comes from the household. I'm being a good steward of our resources, of our money. When I came along, like you said too, we were taught some of that in the schools, and a lot of bankers. When I was a younger banker, I spent time in the schools reading to the young kids in the 5th and 6th grade and explaining why you should have a bank account. And some of the banks would say, if you open up a bank account, we'll put $100 in it. Things like that, just to encourage them to do that, to save. So it's all across the board. That, even with the churches, a lot of the churches will do Dave Ramsey, just to all across the board, just to get folks to become more debt free and be more mindful and have better discipline on their spending and their savings. It's a team approach. What's your thoughts, Courtney?
So I'm going to say the same, home and at school. Unfortunately, it's not necessarily in the school curriculum right now. So we partner with organizations like Alliance for Financial Assistance Ministries and also Junior Achievement, where they go and they take their programs and do, financial assimilations, and they have lessons about financial literacy that are open to different schools. And so we've been able to do that throughout different schools in HISD and Fort Bend ISD as well. And just talking to the kids about, this is what a check looks like, and they were like, this is the check or this is the credit card, and really walking them through what a budget is. And I remember one day I think it was about a third grader who said, what's a credit score? And was wanting to ask, well, what is a good credit score? So they have kids that are curious about this because clearly they've heard it somewhere, but they're like, well, what is this? And so really trying to understand what this looks like. And so we've actually done some budgets with them. And I had one kid say, do you have to do this every month? And I said, yes, this is a budget. This is what your mom or dad does, or your sister, brother, or whatever. Like, this is something you're going to have to do. And so there's, I love bringing that information. I wish it was, mandated in the schools that they did have to teach financial literacy.
It honestly
so
should
much
be
far further along if they did. But then also at home is, where it can start as well. Like, this is what we do. Like you said, it was grown folks' business, but how do we include it as a family and say, this is what we have? This is what goes toward phone bill. This is what goes toward rent or mortgage. Like, let's have those real conversations. I think that's what's been missing in our community, is that we're not having those conversations about money. And then we get to a certain point in maybe our adulthood where we're looking like, what do I do about this loan? Or we have to make decisions to buy cars and homes. And we've never been taught that stuff, And so it's best to have those conversations early on, so we may not have some of the issues, financial issues later on.
Totally agree, because one of the things that we do with the lack of financial education, especially when it comes to credit and that education, is that we will take our child, or at least back in the day, take the child. If the parent's credit is messed up,
right,
we will take your child's name to get a new account, turn on the lights, put the lights in their name, put the water in their name, cable or whatever in their name. And then by the time that child gets grown and they trying to go and do something, it's like, oh no, your credit report, you have something, this is like, what? Like, I was 5 years old. Like, how could I, as a parent, but our white counterparts, on the other hand, they take their child and they add them on as an authorized user on their credit card. And so by the time they get to a certain point in life or a certain age and they want something, it's easy peasy. So the education is lacking. Go ahead, Castel.
Right. Hey, one thing a comment I want to make, which will help a lot of folks out there. They're asking, how do I get my credit score up? One thing I've told a lot of my customers over the years is what I've done for 30 years. Everything I do is on draft. My light bills, my water bills, my mortgage, the money automatically comes out of my checking account. And I know how much needs to be in that account at that point in time. So if you have issues on your credit, you got to pay off the collection items. Okay, that's the first thing. And then put all your loan payments or your debt payments, installment payments on draft. That way, nothing's ever late. And I will tell you, if you do that and pay off all that stuff that's on the collections right now, you'll get your credit score up to 750 fairly quickly within probably, I would say, just me talking, probably 9 to 12 months, because nothing will ever be late. And once you do that, you don't have to worry about it. When you go to buy a new car or a house, you have an exemplary credit score. And those are just a few basic things, but you got to make sure you got enough money in that bank account, to cover, from a budget standpoint, as Courtney talked about, to cover those payments.
I like what Janelle said here. Building up credit is a process that entails purchases on credit and paying what was extended to you in credit on time, monthly. Yes,
that's correct.
Indeed, yeah, I do want to go over here to the Facebook and YouTube audience who have questions. We go back. Mr. O'Neill Barnett asked, "Can I partner with someone else to start a business? What are some of the items I should consider?"
Okay, can I partner with someone else to start a business? Well, first, you need to decide what type of business you want to start. Okay, and what items should I consider? Let's just say a real estate loan. Say, for instance, you want to buy a single tenant commercial building that may cost you $500,000. The bank's going to require you to put in 20%. That's $100,000. Plus there's closing costs. You may not have $100,000. So what you then do is you then need to partner with someone that you know, that's like-minded, that you trust, who has good credit and pays your bills, that you want to be in partnership with for the next 10 or 20 years, that has the same goals and objectives that you do. Okay. Then you don't want too many partners because the pie is not big enough for too many people. So you partner with that individual. You then put your plan, you then assess, we're talking real estate now, whether it's real estate or a business. You assess what type of property it's going to be, what your cost is going to be, who's going to manage it, who's going to pay taxes, who's going to form the corporation. And you go through this whole process, business plan wise, to prepare for that. And then once you have all that put together, then talk to a bank and talk about what your vision is. And the banker will give you some additional information you need to provide, and then you go from there. Now, I'll tell you, once you have all this information, not every loan is the right fit for that bank. You may talk to 4 or 5 banks before you find the right home for that opportunity. But identifying your partners, the right partners, is the most critical thing, and making sure you and your partner have resources to support, adequate resources, being cash, to support that business if you have challenges like what we had last year during the pandemic.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Just to reset the room, we want to welcome everyone who has tapped in. This is Chevy's Keys to Excellence, being powered by Veritex Community Bank. We're talking to Courtney and Castel of Veritex Community Bank as we wrap up Black History Month. And we're talking about financial literacy, something that we all need daily, all the time. Let's talk about how about navigating through COVID-19 as a business. Like, what are some of the things that people should know about that?
Okay. Navigating through COVID-19, there's been 2 different types of loans out there. There was the PPP loan 1, which, and then of course the EIDL. Most businesses, there was a huge amount of money that was available for businesses that applied for it. But as we indicated, the biggest challenge for a lot of us was that our experience was not very good with banks. So a lot of us did not apply for PPP 1 loans. And so we got left out because we didn't think the bank would give it to us. Well, the issue was, as we said, was government money. And if you applied and you were fortunate to get through the queue at your bank, then you were able to get the money. 1 has already passed. A lot of folks are waiting to have their PPP loans forgiven. On PPP 1, if your loan amount was less than $150,000, it's pretty much about a 1-page application that you need to fill out and sign through your respective banks to get that forgiven. So if you haven't done it already, contact your bank to talk about the forgiveness of PPP 1. On PPP 2, those loans are still out there right now. The requirements on PPP 2 loans is that you have to, your revenues or sales have to be down 25% in either quarter 1, 2, or 3 of 2020 versus 2019. So if your revenues were off in one of those 3 quarters of last year, then you can apply for PPP 2 loans. As of this past Wednesday, the SBA put a moratorium on processing PPP 2 loans that had greater than 20 employees, so that the small businesses, like a lot of the ones we're talking to today, can get in the queue to get a PPP 2 loan to go to the front of the line. So they will not look at any of the larger loans or companies that have over 20 employees. And this is for my SBA folks I talked to earlier today, until after March 9th. So if you have not applied, I encourage you to get with your bank and talk to them about applying for a PPP2 loan. EIDL loans are economic disaster loans that are eligible for most businesses. The rate, as I remember over the past few months, was about 3.75% with long maturities on it. And this was long-term, as the term I use, permanent working capital that would help a business stabilize itself until the market as a whole, until their business industry improved. So these are long-term loans at 3% money. So for example, if your loan was $100,000, you're only paying back to the SBA about 5%, $5,000 a year over the next 20 years, which helps you to bridge that gap between the lost revenue and income during 2020 and through the first month or two of this year. Still saying that, during this point in time, we need to reassess our businesses and determine, can our businesses work on a lower top line of revenue basis. For example, a lot of the fast food restaurants are no longer dine in, they're strictly drive-through. A lot of them are doing very, very well. As some of you noticed during last week when we had the freeze, the Whataburgers and the Arby's of the world had lines around the block. Why are these fast food restaurants doing well? Because there's no dine-in restaurant, so there's no shrinkage of inventory. The restaurants may now have only 4 employees as opposed to 13 there, and they're able to better control their costs. So as a business, you have to figure out, how can I control my costs if I have 70% of the business that I had before? So you have to look at every line item in your business, every expense. How can I cut costs, and how can I still be successful? Plus, these PPP loans have provided a jump start in supporting small businesses while the market is still very volatile, until the market settles down and we get back to hopefully where we were before then. So those are kind of a couple thoughts I would have. I have more thoughts on it, but hopefully that helps a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. And there is help, from what I understand, right, Courtney?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. What'd you say?
No, I said, and there is help. There are resources available.
Absolutely. So there's a variety of different resources. The bank, we partner with so many different organizations out here in the Houston area. And so if you all have ever heard of SCORE is a great partner organization of ours. They are a whole bunch of retired executives that have been CEOs or, VPs of finance at different corporations. And they have said, you know what, we want to give our time. We want to provide our knowledge and our help and assistance. And so you can go to SCORE for free mentorship, for free workshops. They have classes, if not every day, every other day, where you can learn about, how do I write a business plan? How do I learn to manage my financials? How do I learn about, marketing and social media? How do I learn about just all of the different aspects of business? SCORE is one of our partners that we work with. And so we've been able to have bankers actually go and teach some of their financial portions of their courses as well. And then there's organizations like Live Fund, Houston Business Development, Inc., also known as HBDI, and True Fund that are our partners as well. And they also help provide education. And so different webinars and workshops and things of that nature, like what we're doing now, but also some technical assistance for businesses too. And then they also are some small micro lending as well. So they have a variety of resources here. We partner with them we've been partnering with them for a few years now as well. And then the City of Houston, their Business of Opportunity, that is a great starting place to go to as well. You can get a variety of resources there at that website for business owners, just to learn, what does the city provide, learning just the fundamentals. What's the first step? Filing an LLC, and how do I set up my corporation, and what's the resources there at the city, and what workshops do they have, and how do I get certified as a minority owned business? And there's so many different aspects that they have there. And then the SBA, Castel said it earlier, SBA has so much information, and that's also the great hub of just small business administration. They've got everything on the EIDL loans, PPP loans, but other workshops and things that are happening here in the area. And so pretty much every every city should have some type of SBA hub. And so we have ours as well here in Houston.
Right. And KG, let me make one more comment. I want to address working with landlords, those that are renting space, which we didn't address earlier, is that even with my larger customers, a lot of them have had challenges with the landlords. And some of the things we have recommended to them is some landlords are willing to put the additional rent on the back end of the lease. Some landlords are willing to forgive a portion of it. In some cases, I visited with one company that has large rent payments. And what I recommended them was to do a pro forma financial statement for the next 12 months and show what they expect their revenue or sales to be month by month and what amount of rent they could support, and then provide that plan to the landlord so the landlord could see that the business has gone through this mental exercise of evaluating their current situation. And a lot of cases, if you go through that exercise and you thought it through, the landlord in a number of cases is willing to work with you because you're not asking for a handout. You're being realistic as to the viability of your business and sustainability. And most landlords do not want to find a new tenant. A lot of these tenants have been with them 5-10 years or so, and they just want to make sure that you're serious about the continuity and your business being an ongoing entity. And most of them are going to work with you if they can. So you can't be afraid of the landlord. You don't know what they're going to say unless you ask. And sometimes you have to ask 2, 3, and 4 times.
Yeah, I'm in that situation, but I'm not going to get into that. But thank you all for that. I want to go back because there were some questions that we did miss from our Facebook and YouTube audience. I know we got O'Neill. I believe the next one, kind of like Henderson had asked, how is the best way to build up credit?
How to build credit?
Yeah, the best way to build up credit.
Well, you have to build credit. You have to have some credit for starters. I think the first thing is you have to have a clean credit report. Get your credit repaired if it's not repaired. I mean, if you have some credit issues on it, as I indicated, collection items have to go, doctor bills have to go, and then I strongly encourage everyone to put those payments, all of them, on draft, and then your credit score will go up. Once you do that, you'll have the ability to borrow money if you have income to pay your bills. If you have income to pay your bills, then you can, if you're looking at further developing and growing your business, then the bankers are more susceptible to lend you money if your credit's in order. Now, let's say the company's been in business for 10 years and you own a building and you have good equity in your building. The thought process would be is talk to your bank about doing a refinance. If you have 40% equity in the building, that will provide additional working capital for you. Your collateral is very important when borrowing money. So if you have acceptable collateral, then you have something you're able to talk to the bank about. Well, they'll consider lending you money. But credit is the number one thing that has to be in order for you to get in the door. If your credit's not in order, it's really a very big challenge, even with the SBA.
I want to plug one of our partner organizations really quick to talk about building credit, and especially if it's your personal credit. The Credit Coalition here in Houston is a wonderful organization. We have a banker that actually sits on the board for the Credit Coalition. And we help teach assist with some of their workshops as well. I would definitely look to see when their next classes may be. That would be one of your steps to help you maybe in addressing some of your credit needs.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if we answered the question. I hope we did.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Castel.
I was hoping that we did answer his question.
For sure. Cody Green asks, and Courtney, I'm sure this is for you since you're familiar with this. How is the best way to teach our kids and at what age?
I say as early as possible. Honestly, like I said, we've gone in and taught everything from, first grade on up. We've done some stuff with first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth. I don't think it's ever, too early of an age to start talking to your children about budgeting. And so Junior Achievement has some wonderful materials, but there's a variety of materials that are online that you can find just to kind of start talking about the basics and say, hey, this is what a $5 bill is and what you can buy with that. And maybe whenever you're going to the grocery store with your kids and teaching them like, hey, what can I get with this $5? Or do I want to save this for another time? Like, get creative. You have to get creative. I don't think it's necessarily a, one size fits all type of deal, but you have to think about just different situations. And when you want to start talking about, student loans and grants and things that are out there, especially for our high school students and our middle school students, scholarships, what do things like that look like? But also just from a young age, like you were talking about, we may go open, a new bill in our kids' names versus putting them on as an assigned authorized user on a credit card. Like, we have to really start weighing out, what do we want our next generation to look like? And as far as their finances, and like we talked about generational wealth, like, how do we really build that?
Indeed.
Living within your means.
Living within,
Right.
that's it. That's it.
Yep.
O'Neill Barnett is asking, how can Treasury management products help my business?
Okay. Treasury management products, what I'm thinking of in terms of treasury management products is first building a nest egg. Well, having adequate working capital to support the business. So say, for instance, your company made, $100,000 last year over and above your salary. Instead of spending, $80,000 of that $100,000 on a new house or a car, keeping that in a money market account or some type of brokerage account or so that during times like the pandemic or like what happened this past week, you have the ability to support the business on your own and not borrow money. That will prevent you from having interruptions in the business. So the more money you make, the more you want to reinvest in the business in terms of to generate more revenue and income. Or as I've told a lot of individuals, I said, if you make a lot of money, I'm not saying necessarily you got to keep in the bank, but put on your personal financial statement, open up a brokerage account, okay, invest it, get a better return on your money so that when you decide it's time to sell the business you want to retire, you can retire very comfortably. And that's what I would view from a treasury management standpoint. There's lots of treasury management products that we have for business owners. Most businesses don't necessarily come to the bank anymore, so they'll have a remote deposit capture machine on their desk so they can just swipe their checks and deposit them of that nature. But, once you get to critical mass, let's just say, $250,000, $500,000, most banks, and of course I advocate the community banks, have a dedicated private bankers and wealth managers to help you find the best vehicle to invest your money, depending on what your investment horizon is. Okay. But you need to have a certain dollar amount to kind of get there.
Here's a great question from Leanne. Do you have a better chance getting approved for a loan under the Community Reinvestment Act?
I think, go ahead, Courtney.
With that, I think it's a variety of different things. They would technically be about a community development loan under CRA. So that would be something that the banker would take a look at, but they're depending on what the loan is. If it's about something with community revitalization and you may be building a healthcare center or a daycare center or a grocery store in a neighborhood that's looking to be revitalized, there's a variety of things that we look at under the Community Reinvestment Act. And so we have some great bankers that have been able to do some things with affordable housing complexes, grocery stores, all different types of things here at Veritex. So,
indeed. And Courtney, the resources that you had mentioned, which one of those help with credit repair?
It's Credit Coalition.
The Credit Coalition.
Yeah, the Credit Coalition. They actually weren't on the slide, but it's the Credit Coalition. You can Google them and they'll pop right on up.
Indeed. Let me scroll through for any more questions. I think that was the last one. Wow. But well, apparently from these comments, guys, the information that you all provided has been gold, because I'm seeing these comments. They are very thankful and appreciative of the information that you all have shared today. So thank you all for being here. Thank you to Chevy, the Houston area Chevy dealers, for providing these keys to excellence throughout all of Black History Month. And we especially want to thank Courtney Taylor, the VP of Community Development at Veritex Community Bank, and Castel Hibbert, the Executive VP of Communications at Veritex Community Bank. Man, thank you all so much. This was
our pleasure.
Great. I mean, I can still keep going, for real, for real. I mean, wow. So any final words?
I think the only final words is that we're excited at Veritex to be able to partner with Magic and provide the information, growing, expand our relationship with our community is very important. I know a number of us had this conversation several months ago, and this is one of the opportunities for us, because I know Magic reached out to us and said, would you like to work with us? And we are thrilled to death to be able to do it. I will say that we would like to do more business in our communities. And we have a team that's willing to visit with individuals and move forward in that process. On the screen, you did see Latina Curry's name and number. She's kind of the first person that I think a lot of folks would talk to. Then it would come to myself or some others to help foster that in, to develop more relationships.
Indeed.
Absolutely.
Man, thank you all so much. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Courtney.
We have about 13 locations here in the Houston area. So everything from the Bay Area to the Woodlands to Memorial Galleria type of areas. So we're all around. Our lobbies are closed right now because of COVID-19 and CDC, safety regulations. However, give us a call. We can help. Latina is our first point of contact. And then, we have our information on there as well. So we're ready and willing to help.
Just for my own, this is my question, because I'm going to check y'all out and possibly begin to bank with you all. Are you all hooked up to all of the digital payment joints like an Apple Pay or, all of the digital ways of banking?
I can't say all of them.
I believe we have a variety of virtual platforms to do payments and things of that nature on. So we can get you that information as well. So.
Indeed. Thank you all so much, Courtney and Castel from Veritex Community Bank. And thank you, Facebook and YouTube audience. You can, if you need to go back to get some information, this will be available on Magic's Facebook page after this broadcast and on Magic's YouTube channel. So make sure that you, subscribe to Magic's YouTube channel, and make sure you like us on Facebook as well, so you can go back and watch this incredible panel. So thank you, Courtney and Castel. Veritex Community Bank, thank you. Chevy, with your keys to excellence for Black History Month. What a way to wrap up Black History Month with this vital information. So thank you all so much.
Thank you for having us.
All right.
When you look for a bank, choose a partner with local expertise and local decision-making. Veritex Community Bank offers solutions and a true business ally. We look forward to building your future. We're Veritex Community Bank, true to your business, true to Texas.